Hey everybody, I'm Tim and today we're picking apart Padrón. And you're watching Cigars Daily. Get more out of this and all our videos when you join the community on Cigars Daily Plus. Every industry has their mega brand names. The ones that people have come to unanimously trust and accept above many others. We call them household names, right? And in the world of premium cigars, one of those brands is Padrón. The Padrón family's been around for a long time, and a lot of consumers today see Padrón as like the Air Jordans of cigars. It's like the brand that is synonymous with the product, and so many people stand by Padrón in this very cult following, hyper loyal type of way that some other people stand by Cubans with. Certainly though, the Padrón people are out there and they are plentiful, and if you're just getting into cigars, you've either tried a Padrón or it's probably on your list to try one. Whether you pay attention to the top rated cigars out there or the top 25 lists that come out every year, or hell, just the recommendations of your friends, eventually something's going to come up that's going to say Padrón and you're going to be fascinated by it. But I've also learned about some really interesting stuff behind Padrón. Things that quite frankly caught me a little bit off guard, and that's exactly what I want to share with you today. Now, I'll tell you up front, these come from a Cigar Aficionado article entitled 11 Enlightening Facts About Padrón. You can read all 11 of them there. I'm going to share 7 things from this article and of course give you guys some insights on those things, but I'll ask you to comment right now. What has your experience with Padrón been like? There are not a lot of haters for Padrón out there. I'm sure they have a few, I just haven't met them yet. But there's a lot of people who love the brand and you can talk about it more below. Are you new to cigars and you want to try them still? Or are you a seasoned smoker who has celebrated a wedding or buying a new house or some very special occasion with a high-end Padrón 1964 or a Padrón 1926? Put all that down below and we'll talk more about it there. And with no further ado, let's jump right in. This first one is the one that caught me most off guard because when you hear about cigars, especially the top tier, top shelf stuff, in cigars, it's synonymous with aged leaf. You want to get leaf that's got lots of age on it because that is typically the stuff that's a little bit more well-rounded, smooth, and you get better balance of flavor. So when I read that the company does not age their cigars, it blew my mind. Now, this is true sort of to a degree because like all cigar makers, Padrón ages the leaf that go into their cigars before they're rolled. But unlike pretty much every other cigar company out there, they don't age them after they're rolled. This is so strange to me. In every cigar factory I've been to, and I've been to a few, they have got aging rooms where after the cigars are rolled, they're typically rested for around 30 to 45 days. This gives the cigars the ability to sort of adjust to the climate and even out in terms of moisture. That sometimes have extra moisture as they're rolling them so the leaves don't crack and crumble, but not Padrón. They say that they want to make their cigars rolled and ready to ship and ready to smoke the same day. And cigar consumers around the world get them, smoke them, and love them. Nobody knows, and you probably would never know if I didn't tell you, that when they roll the cigars, they go straight off the packaging without ever seeing an aging room. Now, there's one thing I've noticed about a lot of cigar makers in this industry, and it's that they all sort of have their own kinds of leaves they work with. Some brands work more with Habano type leaves. Other brands work more with exotic type leaves, like your broadleaf and your Mexican San Andreas. And some of them have quite a variety of leaves out there. But Padrón, for such a popular brand that does so much business every year, they only work with sun-grown leaf. And that's it. Hell, even the Padrón Damaso that I'm smoking right now doesn't use a shade-grown leaf that's grown either in the shade of a cheesecloth, where while all the other brands are covering whole crops of tobacco with cheesecloth, Padrón just says, grow it all in the sun and it'll be fine. And they still have cigars that are sun-grown and darker Maduro cigars. And the Damaso right here, as it uses a Ecuador Connecticut seed that's then also been grown in the sun. Hell, I don't know how they get it to look so beautiful and creamy and Connecticut-y, but certainly seems to reason why this Connecticut seed cigar has got a little more power and oomph to it. Now, if that's not weird enough, how Padrón got started out is even more bizarre, considering the fact that the family name is synonymous with some really elite high-end stuff, again, that Padrón 1926 and 64, which basically live on the top 25 list. The original Padrón cigars were like 25 cents. They were not the same elite cigars that we look for today. There were some more bargainy brand type stuff. It wasn't until much later that Padrón actually started making even larger cigars, like the sizes that we're used to seeing in brick and mortar stores, and then eventually the Aniversario stuff that rocks all of our worlds. Now, among all the many beautiful features of Padrón's packaging and all the embossed gold foil on them and the individual serial numbered cigars so you know they're the real thing, one thing that a lot of people notice is that many of the bands have this little hammer on them. And that hammer actually has a fascinating backstory. It starts with Jose O. Padrón, who when he first landed in America was given a hammer. He needed to make ends meet, and he used this hammer in carpentry, one of his jobs he had before he was in the cigar making world. Today, that very same hammer is an honored part of the Padrón family's tradition and actually sits on display in the Padrón HQ in Florida. This next one kind of got me because I've made a lot of videos on Padrón, and I almost always reference how Padrón is like one of the original Nicaraguan cigar making families. They were making Nicaraguan cigars before it was cool to make cigars in Nicaragua. But there was a period of time where Padrón cigars were made entirely in Honduras. This actually happened during the 1980s because of something I wasn't even aware of. The United States put a trade embargo against Nicaragua from the years 1985 to 1990. That means no importing any Nicaraguan goods. So Padrón built a factory in Danlí, Honduras, which is still the cigar-making heart of Honduras today. They made cigars there for a while before eventually returning to Nicaragua, where they still proudly make their cigars today. Now, like I said, Padrón is a widely recognized, highly accepted brand among cigar smokers, but there is one fact about their cigars that some people are just going to be, I think, automatically turned off by, and it's the fact that so many of them are box pressed. Padrón's 1000 series, the 2000, 3000, 4000, the 1964 and 1926, many of their cigars come in a box pressed form. Certainly, Padrón didn't invent box pressing cigars, but when they started doing it, it wasn't a very popular way of making cigars. But then after Padrón started box pressing the stuff everybody wanted, there was a huge resurgence of box press blends in the industry, and now just about everybody has a box press blend of one form or another. And so if you like box press cigars, you might owe some of that to Padrón. And if you don't like box press cigars, well then, which Padróns are you smoking? Now, of all the outlandish, sort of unexpected facts about the Padrón family and their cigars, this one took me the most by surprise. Hot chocolate could have ended the Padrón story before it began. So Jose O. Padrón at some point brewed a bunch of hot chocolate and tried to sell it out of the trunk of his 1952 Plymouth. Now, I don't know why that worked. Maybe it's because he was doing it in Florida, which, by God, what time of year are you drinking hot chocolate in Florida? I guess we can all be thankful that he tried an idea that seems to me to be sort of weird up front. If I was going to sell hot chocolate, maybe Michigan, Southern Canada, somewhere in Maine or Oregon. There's lots of places where hot chocolate would make good sense, especially if you're selling it out of the trunk of a Plymouth. But it didn't really work out too well for Jose down there in Florida. It was after that he got into the cigar making world and built a legendary brand. And somehow over Padrón's history of many decades, they've also been this multi-generational cigar making family without any scandals. And I checked. There's like nothing about Padrón other than the fact that they make great and quality cigars, and they do that again year after year after year with profound consistency to their blends. It's one of the things that gives their brand's name so much credibility in the market. It's a fascinating brand with a rich history and some kind of weird details behind it. But of course, what really matters about Padrón is how it lands on the palate when you light one up. So I'm gonna ask you again, drop a comment down below. What is your favorite Padrón cigar? Or hell, what was the last Padrón you remember smoking? Put that down below, because this is one of the brands that's sort of foundational for our industry and the hobby that we have all come to love so much. And of course, I wanna invite you to check this video out on the community on Cigars Daily Plus. And thank you all so much for watching. This is Tim, signing off for Cigars Daily, and I will see you in the comments.